Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Alrighty, I want all you true believers to say a prayer that the internet gods are with us today and aren't going to mess with us like they did yesterday. For that, I apologize. We don't really know what the hell happened because everything has worked smoothly every other day, pretty much, right? That was like a horrible deja vu experience yesterday. I found myself back at Point Park, and I found myself back at the studio, the first studio we had, one floor down. Oh, man. So anyway, fingers crossed, and apologies to all of you for that messed up effort. Oh, there's so much. I wonder when the next time will be that I can start this show without a sigh. I mean, I just heard myself. I just hope. So, something my sister said yesterday has stuck with me. First of all, I thought it was very funny, and I thought it was right on the mark. And that is, what? City Paper website is showing yesterday's show. YouTube is playing us live. Okay, just saying. Thank you, Chuck. Now, you guys aren't praying hard enough. Come on your knees. Speaking of on your knees, interesting, the NFL owners punted yesterday. They held a meeting, and it was widely assumed, I think, by an awful lot of people, that they would change their rule, which is very vague, by the way, about what a player's supposed to do during the national anthem. It's not very vague, but it's not definitive. The rule book says that players must be on the sideline during the song and should stand for it. Should ain't must. So there was a feeling that maybe it would be a change of that. They did not. And I just have a few things to say about that. First of all, the union representative and a number of players who had knelt were also at the meeting, as well as Roger Goodell and some owners. And the players, explained why they are doing what they are doing. Colin Kaepernick was even invited, which strikes me as interesting. Yeah, guys, I know I'm getting another indication that they can't get us on the website. We're working on it. It should be up soon. Anyway, hang in there. YouTube's got us. Kaepernick chose not to come. It might have been a sort of sticky since he's suing the NFL for collusion. But I was sent a video about 2 weeks ago that was made in Philadelphia, and it followed, and I think I got it from the ACLU, and I think the ACLU was somewhat involved in this meeting, maybe or maybe not, but it showed a day-long effort on the part of some Philadelphia Eagle players who are very involved in this and in the community, along with Roger Goodell, who spent the day with them as well. And they went from place to place. They visited people working for criminal justice reform. They were given tutorials on the criminal justice system and how biased it is against African Americans, and on and on. It was really fascinating. And Goodell and the New York Times reported today that Goodell has in fact done this in a few cities. He did it in Miami with players. He did it in Philly, trying to show that the NFL understands what the protest is about and, in fact, agrees that things need to change. And I believe the NFL yesterday said it would actually step up its efforts to work with groups that were trying to stop the racial divide in our criminal justice system. They promised to help support groups that are working to reform the criminal injustice system as it applies to black Americans. So there's that. And two other things I want to say is obviously they wish this would go away because it is costing them somewhat with some fans, but the NFL is in a bit of a quandary here because I think the players hold the winning hand. You know, there's a lot of them, and the product, the game, doesn't happen without them. And so I think if you were to start punishing players, taking action against players who kneel, I think you would just see more players kneeling. So it continues, and Donald Trump will continue to exploit this for his own purposes, which is to stay the center of attention and to whip up as much division and rage as he can. And one thing I'll give him this, he's good at that. Really good at that. The other thing I want to say, because I heard myself mention the ACLU before, is that in regard to the First Amendment, the players don't have a knee to stand on, a leg to stand on. They do not have, just to clarify this, people really don't get the First Amendment. They do not have the right to protest in this manner while they're at work. And when they're on the sidelines, they're at work. So they are in their employer's place of dominion. And you do not have. You cannot. People don't understand that. When you're in that's considered a private setting. When you're in that private setting, when it is employer-employee, First Amendment rights don't really protect you very much. Okay, so that's I don't think anyone at the ACLU would disagree with that. So, just to say, this will continue. Trump will continue, and that's that. Trump is particularly repulsive today. He's now taking on they're always black, it seems. I was taking on the black congresswoman from Florida who was in the car with the widow of one of the Green Berets killed in Niger when the president called the widow. And the president, of course, was pretty much forced into calling the families of these four Americans who were killed, almost 2 weeks ago now? He never acknowledged it publicly. For all the people who went berserk over Benghazi, this is a similar kind of situation where four of our guys who are where? We have troops in Niger? Does anybody even know? What the hell were they doing? What went wrong? Blah, blah, blah. There's tons of questions. And the incuriosity on the part of people who just couldn't focus enough on the deaths in Benghazi is well, I think it's rather telling. At any rate, the congresswoman, was stunned. The call was, I guess, on speakerphone. So she heard what the president said, and she was appalled. Because I guess he said more than once to this widow that he knew what he signed up for. Something to that effect. Said it more than once. The widow, who was reduced to tears, is now saying that he never even mentioned her husband's name. She said, I guess he didn't really know it. Anyway, we all know Trump is hobbled by a total lack of empathy. Doesn't know how, can't reach anything within himself to find the right words, the right tone, or anything, because he just doesn't feel it. He's a truly crippled man. City's paper's website is fixed. I am happy to report that City Paper's website is now fixed. So there's that, and that will continue to probably go back and forth. It's extraordinarily unpleasant, untoward. The president says he can prove that what the congresswoman said is untrue because he recorded the call. Where have we heard that before? And we never heard that recording. Remember, he said he'd recorded the conversation with then FBI Director Comey. So, as usual, one can suspect that the president is blowing smoke and sowing division. Because that's what that guy does from the minute he wakes up in the morning till the moment he rests his orange head on his pillow. He also took a shot at John McCain again. John McCain was given... Okay, I've got a caller. I'll take the caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
You know, Donald Trump cannot express compassion in an appropriate, meaningful way on any matter.
He doesn't have it. He doesn't possess
Doesn't have it.
the emotion of compassion. He doesn't have it.
And for a president not to have that, I think that is a major deficit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a major deficit for any human being, but for a president, it's particularly impactful.
It's very sad, and that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
He's not going to wake up one morning and get it. So.
You know, and he always, and then flailing around, trying to defend himself. He takes down as many better people as he can. So he says that President Obama did not call any of the survivors of soldiers.
Well, whenever he's challenged or put in a corner, that's what he does.
Right.
He deflects. You know, he deflects to somebody else.
With lies. I mean, because it's just lies.
And most of the time, the information he deflects with is not correct.
That is correct. Also...
that just puts him in a deeper hole.
Right. And the other despicable thing he did is that in, again, attempting to somehow protect himself, he threw his chief of staff, John Kelly, under the bus by politicizing his very personal loss of his own son in Afghanistan. And he said Obama never called. And the fact is that Kelly has been scrupulous not to publicize, politicize in any way his beloved son's death. Trump, no problem.
Then Donald Trump can't understand that he would want to do that.
No, of course not. Again, totally incapable of comprehending somebody not using anything to...
Well, it's all about him.
That's
the point. It's all about him. And we're going to put up with that 3 more years. Or maybe more, hopefully, but maybe more.
I was going to say,
hopefully.
Who knows?
And maybe hopefully less.
Yeah, thank you.
But who knows?
Who knows, indeed.
All right, well.
Okay, well,
it's
always good to talk to you.
Have a good day there, ma'am.
You too, sir. I thank you. Yay. Yeah. Yeah, when California was burning down and Puerto Rico was drowning and people dying and these 4 soldiers ambushed and killed in a country most of us didn't even know we were in any way involved in, that was a weekend, and the president was golfing the whole weekend. He tweeted about some stuff, but I assure you it had nothing to do with any of that, any of the suffering going on his watch that any president would have addressed. But of course, we're dealing with him. So John McCain, who is dying, was given a big honor last night, I believe. And he made, it's called the Liberty, I forget exactly what it is. Anyway, he was given a big honor. And he gives a speech. And in the speech, he says this: "To fear the world we have organized and led for 3/4 of a century, to abandon the ideals we have advanced around the globe, to refuse the obligations of international leadership and our duty to remain the last best hope of Earth. For the sake of some," he's saying, to abandon all that for the sake of some half-baked, spurious nationalism cooked up by people who would rather find scapegoats than solve problems, is as unpatriotic as an attachment to any other tired dogma of the past that Americans consigned to the ash heap of history. He was saying, last time I looked, I thought we fought people who espoused these kinds of principles. There's no doubt about who he's talking about. He's talking about people in his own party and the president, who's of his party, and Trump, not given to nuance, clearly understood that he was being pilloried to a certain extent, and so he did what he always does. He didn't talk to McCain one-on-one. He tweeted. And he tweeted this: "People have to be careful because at some point I fight back." There he is, the bully in chief. And then he says, no, I don't think he tweeted that. He said that on a radio show. And then he said, I'm being very nice. I'm being very, very nice. But at some point, I fight back, and it won't be pretty. That's our president. For any American to feel anything but revulsion and shame, I don't understand. I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand that this party continued to embrace him after he said, early in the campaign, before he even had the nomination, that he dissed John McCain and said, I like people who weren't captured. He was saying he wasn't a hero. John McCain's response to this is the threat from the president. It's fine with me. I've faced some fairly significant adversaries in the past. Senator McCain was accompanied to this dinner by his good friend, former colleague, Democrat, former Vice President Joe Biden. Another honorable man who has grown closer to the senator because he buried his own son, another soldier, Bo, who died from the same cancer that's killing John McCain. But our president is Donald Trump. Something I still can't get my head around. Just to catch you up on some stuff we haven't talked about, but it's in the news. A Mississippi middle school has removed To Kill a Mockingbird from the shelves because, I think it still might be on a shelf in the school library, but it's not going to be used in the classroom because the reason given was, quote, it makes people uncomfortable. Now, it's one of the, I know I have a friend who hates the word iconic because it's overused, but I think it is one of the iconic American novels. And the fact is, it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. If you're not made uncomfortable, then you must be Donald Trump or something. Great literature often is supposed to make you uncomfortable. Jesus. People who want to live in bubble wrapville, white breadville, never challenged, never having to wince or have a second thought. I mean, that is the definition of extreme cowardice, if you ask me. And so I don't know from this piece who was made to feel uncomfortable, whether they were white or black, because I do know that To Kill a Mockingbird is one of the books banned most often in schools, as usually because parents freak. And black parents have been known to freak about it because there's the N-word in it a lot. And white racists have been known to not like it particularly, since it clearly takes the point of view of the protagonist, who is an honorable Southern lawyer. So there was that. And also in school-related stuff, New Mexico, ladies and gentlemen, hop, skipping, and jumping around the country. The great state of New Mexico is meeting and considering to drop the subjects of evolution and climate change from its science teaching standards. Great standards those would be, huh? Yeah, we're going to educate you in science, but since we have politicized certain things in science, we won't do those. Two rather important things, evolution and climate change. And you might not have noticed, but there is the potential for another war breaking out in Iraq, which is already battling people. This would be Iraqis battling the Kurds, who are also technically Iraqis, but they held a little referendum and said, we'd really like our own place here. A lot of people have been doing that lately. Catalonia, the Kurds. Here's the thing. The Kurds have always allied themselves with us, and of course we've allied ourselves with Iraq. We have supplied weaponry to both. So I just wanted to point out that here we have a situation where, by the way, the Iraqis have already taken one of the cities that the Kurds had. It's the oil-rich city of Kirkuk. I mean, the Kurds are great fighters, but I don't think they're any match for the entire Iraqi army. So we've got a fight where we are allied with both sides, putting Americans who are still on the ground, as we like to say, in Iraq in a very difficult spot, putting American diplomats in a very, well, are there any American diplomats? I don't know. In a very tough spot. When you mess around in a part of the world that is a mess and has been a mess for a long, long time, the odds of getting your hands really dirty are pretty damn high, and our experience proves it. Iraq also proves that we learned absolutely nothing from Vietnam. It's amazing that you don't learn a lesson. What else we got here that we haven't really talked about? Oh, this creeped me out. North Korea. There's another one. So North Korea, while we're worrying about its potential for launching a nuclear-armed missile and hitting the mainland of the United States, or for that matter, even Guam, which we know they have the capacity to do, I think. It turns out they have been and are growing in their ability to wage another kind of war on us. And it's one of those asymmetrical kinds of warfare, like who could believe that a bunch of guys, on the Ho Chi Minh Trail could take down the big, bad, awesome firepower of the United States of America. Well, warfare today is very, very different. So he who might have the most and best geeks might win. Turns out North Korea has an army of hackers. As far as we know, more than 6,000 people whose job it is to mess with us. And if they keep getting better at what they do, their potential to create incredible havoc in our country is huge. And not just them, of course. Anybody, any smart cookie who gets all the internet stuff sitting in it. And the more we continue to have everything taken out of human hands and given to hackable machinery, the more potential there is, of course, of really bad things going on. Were you aware that North Korean hackers attempted to steal, get this, $1 billion from the New York Federal Reserve last year. $1 billion to get pulled out of the New York Federal Reserve. The only thing that stopped them was a misspelled word. A misspelled word that somebody noticed and said, that's odd. And so somebody took a second look. Instead of typing the word foundation, they had typed fandation, which maybe made somebody think that's not an English speaker. And that's not a typo. You don't do an OU and an A, ain't even close on the board, so they were busily, these hackers, looting an account held in the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, and the only thing that flagged it was they were attempting to withdraw $1 billion. They misspelled foundation. However, on that very heist, they did get away with $81 million. Did you even know that? They got away with $81 million. And it was a 22-year-old British hacker who stopped the biggest North Korean breach that we're aware of. And that did make the news quite a bit. Excuse me. That's when they had ransomware that took down hundreds of thousands of computers all around the globe and crippled the Great Britain's National Health Service for a day or two. Just pointing out, and this kid saw what was going on. He at least flagged it. So here's this brave new world we're living in, where maybe North Korea doesn't need to be able to reach us with nuclear weaponry. They've got these 6,000 people who, by the way, are scattered around the globe. They're not sitting somewhere in North Korea. And they are capable of unleashing digital warfare, taking down grids. I don't know. I just laugh at people when they try to tell me how to secure my computer and my phone and my financial information and all that. I laugh at them because I don't think anyone really knows how to, unless you make a full-time job of it. And most of us have a life to live, right? Oh, yeah, I got to do this. Want to go to party tomorrow night? Ace Hotel, 7 p.m. Be there, be square. Yeah, just tomorrow night. That's cool. It's the Best of Pittsburgh party, sponsored by us, City Paper. And you got to get tickets online. I don't think you do. I think you could probably show up and get a ticket at the door, but it might cost you more. Who the hell knows? Where you get your ticket is cooltix.com. COOLTIX.com. And if I had to spell that for you, you're not cool. I bet. Like me. Cooltix.com. And then there'll be one of those promo code things. You type my name in there. $10 off. $10. Don't say I never did anything for you. Anyway, there's live music. There's silent disco. There's 2 complimentary beverages, I believe, even alcohol ones. And there you have it. And incredible food, because all the restaurants who win bring food. I don't know if all of them do, but a lot of them do. So there you have it. Ace Hotel is in Liberty, right? One of the happening places they always write about. when they talk about celebrity and Pittsburgh being such a hot foodie haven. I take the days when Isley's was the big place where you went, where Pittsburghers just ate chip chopped ham, you know? Those are the good old days. Not this stuff where you look at a menu and you don't even understand what the hell they're talking about. You don't recognize one word on the menu, and you're too intimidated to ask. Give me a diner. Oh, when I was in Israel and I was on my way back after having had my little adventure with Israeli security, I realized I was in for a, 11-hour plane ride. And I was in the airport, and I thought, you better get a book. So I walked into a bookstore, and I was shocked. I tell you, shocked as any American would be, when I saw the books were in Hebrew. Why, how dare they in Israel have books in Hebrew at a bookstore? I continued to look. I mean, I took Hebrew lessons for 6-7 years, but not a lot stuck. I mean, I can read it, but I don't know what I'm saying. So I'm looking around, and then I see there's a corner in the back, and definitely the books are in English. So I found me a book, and I had heard about it, didn't have a clue what it was about, picked it up, and I read the whole damn book on that airplane. I couldn't put it down. Thank God. I mean, because that's brutal, 11 hours stuck in a, place like that. The book was Lincoln in the Bardo. And I just pointed out because that book won the Man Booker Prize. Well, actually, the author did. Won the Man Booker Prize, which is the biggest award in literature given out by the UK. There's a bit of a stir because he's an American, the guy who wrote it. That would be George Saunders. But I have to say, I thought the book was brilliant, and it's odd as hell. I recommend it to you with some trepidation because I gave it upon my return to a friend who reads voraciously, and he didn't particularly like it. So I just want to tell you that you may or may not. It's fascinating. I'm trying to see if the people who gave the award said it stood out because of its innovation, its very different styling, the way in which it paradoxically brought to life these dead souls or not quite dead souls, this other world. The author is a practicing Buddhist, and in Buddhism there's this place called the Bardo, B-A-R-D-O, where people who have died but haven't yet moved on to their final destination stay. I guess that's sort of kind of like a purgatory kind of thing. But there's so much history in this that it's mind-blowing. So it is about Abraham Lincoln going to his beloved son's grave after he died of typhoid, all this true. And in the book, so much real historical accounts of Lincoln and his wife and the child and the whole thing. So if you're a history buff, you eat this up. But it is bizarre. It is like no other book you've ever read in that, well, you see it the minute you page through it, you see this doesn't look like a regular novel. I recommend it if you haven't. I mean, yeah, innovation would have been exactly what they were thinking of. I mean, it really is pretty extraordinary. It did get rave reviews when it came out, just want you to know. Universal praise, blah, blah, blah. So, if you love Abe Lincoln, if you love history, if you love great writing, if you love somebody taking an extraordinary risk as an author and now being rewarded with the Man Booker Prize, Lincoln in the Bardo if you're looking for something to read. Because when I pick up a book, I don't want a book about the horrors that I get enough of on, newsprint. I just can't. Mark writes, despite Donald saying that Obamacare is dead, it looks like it's back again. This childishness is absolutely insane. I think it's high time that people who choose not to have reasonable health insurance have to carry a medallion or a tattoo or a statement on their license that says, if anything happens to me, stop treating me once the money I have in the bank is gone. I don't know. I remember starting the show and saying something about how Susan had said something that had stuck with me, and then somehow I got derailed. I know, I got derailed by Chuck saying that I wasn't up on the City Paper's website, but I was on YouTube. So let me go back to where I started. Susan said, rather than this, now going absolutely viral upon viral upon viral hashtag of MeToo that started up with women just coming out of the woodwork, willing to say, I've been sexually harassed, abused, raped, whatever, by men who are in powerful positions, yada, yada, yada. And Susan said, wouldn't it be a lot easier if there was just a hashtag for women who didn't? Because I am always stunned when I encounter a woman of my age, certainly, but seeing how young some of these women are, I guess any woman, of a woman who says she was never harassed. And I'm old school, so I don't consider someone putting a hand on my shoulder harassment. I do not. Sorry. I do not. I mean, that kind of thing is what gets, I put my hand on people. I saw that some women consider a man putting his hand while you're talking and he goes like this, puts his hand, that's harassment. I don't personally think that at all. Because I'm sort of a touchy-feely person. The other night I was at dinner and I was talking to a man along with other people, but I realized that twice while I was talking, trying to make a point, I put my hand on his hand. Well, that would be harassment then. He didn't give me permission. Jesus Christ. So, I'm not one of these women who sees harassment anytime a guy says, you look great today. Now, that technically, I guess, constitutes harassment now. If somebody says, you look great today, I always say, thanks. It's always nice to hear. But that's old school. So when I'm talking about harassment, I'm talking about harassment. You can put people in so many, such constraint. It's like what's happened with all political correctness crap, that people are afraid to make eye contact. People are afraid to talk. People are afraid to do a common, just human impulse, like patting someone on the back. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live in a world where you can't flirt. I don't want to live in a world where you can't bandy and have fun. But that's just me. I'm old school. But God knows I have experienced so many occasions of sexual harassment. I couldn't even begin. I think Susan said yesterday she started thinking of it and her head wanted to explode. Because it happens all the time. Now, if you add in somebody puts his hand on your shoulder, why, heck, it happens 500,000 times a day then. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I'm cutting to the chase. I'm cutting to, I'm interviewing a guy and his hand is on my knee and slides up my leg. That's sexual harassment, even though it wasn't when it happened to me, because the term didn't even exist until mid-1970s. They say somebody coined the term, and it was a professor, a woman, who she was teaching a course at Cornell on women and work, and she wanted to find a way to talk about what women might encounter at work, and she decided that this term sort of did the job, although she wasn't thrilled with it. Sexual harassment. And it stuck. But again, the definition is a little wobbly, I suppose. And I think what's fascinating about this is it's sort of like, it could be that the hashtag MeToo thing might be, and I stress might, as consequential as gays coming out of the closet. Because it's the same kind of action. It's taking something that you don't talk about, that you keep private, in women's case because you wouldn't be believed, or you lose your job, or you'd whatever, but it wouldn't help you. It would only hurt you. And of course, for gays, the same thing. You come out and say, I'm gay, you could be fired. You could be beaten up, killed. Who the hell knows? And when gays said, you know what, the only way we're ever going to get anywhere here is we got to stop hiding. You got to come out. And that's why there was this extraordinarily quick turnaround in people's attitudes toward homosexuality. It was because of the courage of so many men and women coming out and saying, here I am. That's it. That's a gay person. And so for women, especially women in positions of power now, women of some, celebrity and or note, or, Natalia Rudiak, who's on our city council, coming out and saying that many occasions, and also in government, in politics, in Pittsburgh, oh yeah, intimidated, touched inappropriately, yada, yada, yada. This is, if it keeps on, it's not unlike what happened with gays. It's telling everybody, this is not some every once in a while story that gets in the news. This is a constant reality of living as a woman. Even now. Makes you think of how brave Anita Hill was. There was nothing for her in coming out publicly. I can't even begin to imagine. 1991, coming out publicly, sitting before that unsmiling, intimidating group of all white men. This black woman, all white men, looking down on her from their perch on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And she told her story of her interaction with Clarence Thomas. There was nothing for her in that. And look what happened. They didn't believe her. He's on the court, has been since 91. People couldn't believe what she was saying. What? Pubic hair on a Coke can? What the hell? I thought, geez. But that's the kind of craziness that a man trying to play with a woman would do. And I want to make so clear here that there are so many men who do not act like this. I've been in the working world for over 40 years. Even more. I said over. I have had a lot of these experiences, but I've also worked with tons of men who would never act in this way. But you would be surprised how many do. You would be shocked. And they're not, they just act in a different manner than they would if they were at home or with their family and friends. In legislatures all over this country now, this is causing women in state legislatures, man's world. In California specifically, they're coming out. And state legislators in California are saying, we take so much abuse you cannot imagine. And some of the accounts in the New York Times today are absolutely chilling. So overt. Understand, these are colleagues. This isn't the secretary. Oh, God, if you're a secretary, God help you. I'm trying to find this account. I couldn't even... See, you don't want to believe it when you're reading it because you can't imagine. And then all you have to do is tell yourself, that there is no reason these women would say that. So, a newly elected member of the California State Senate, a guy, said that when he got to Sacramento, that's their capital, he was shocked. He was shocked by what he saw. And he's quoted as saying, the kind of sexism and misogynism that is pervasive in our culture is definitely prevalent in Sacramento. A Democratic state representative in Rhode Island, a woman, said yesterday that a male colleague once told her that if she wanted to see her bill advance from his committee, there's one way she could get it done. Somebody else says about the guys, there's late night dinners, there's drinking, and it's an old boys club. You can imagine Harrisburg, right? Oh my God. And these guys are away from their wives, they're away from their families, their friends, people who know them well, and they're in this male culture, and they act differently. They see it as almost a fantasy camp. So maybe this hashtag MeToo can pick up some steam and do for women what coming out of the closet did for gays. And the thing is, it's not legislators, it's not anchor women and starlets who are, that's not the face of this kind of behavior. The face of this kind of behavior, I hate to tell you, are the people, the women, who don't get noticed. I mean, who don't amount, who aren't valued by our culture. They're service workers. They're waitresses. They're bartenders. Having to deal with customers who think they're fair game. Having to deal with bosses who think they're fair game. Women working in construction. Women working in Harrisburg. Women working in male-dominated fields, as I did. There were, as I've said before, I was the only woman in the first television newsroom I was in, and it wasn't pretty. So next time you hear one of these stories from some woman, believe it, and no, it's not unusual. That's all. No, it's not unusual. There's a front page story today about how the other Weinstein brother, apparently also notorious for harassing employees. If not sexually, then, just in generally treating them with extraordinary disrespect. This is a male problem. Men have a lot of problems. Smarter people than me have talked about what's going on here, but and I guess it's time for guys, sort of like you say to the police, there's just a few bad apples. Well, then, if there's just a few bad apples, how about all you good apples getting together and policing your own, okay? And so it's time for the good guys to stop acquiescing, to stop laughing at the jokes, to stop it. The bad guys, I don't know. Maybe some of them can get educated. I don't know. Maybe younger men are better. I hope. I don't know. But #MeToo, that's something almost any woman in the working world can attest to. Me too. And this idea that beating up on Harvey Weinstein and throwing the book at him is going to do anything about the problem is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Because do you know how many Harvey Weinsteins there are in Hollywood? Do you know how many Roger Ailes and what's the creep's name, O'Reillys there are in television? And then take any field. Taking one big guy down and jumping all over him and acting like, yeah, we got him. Come on. Half the people squawking about Harvey Weinstein probably engage in the same activity themselves. This does not have one face. It's a societal problem. It's a global problem. The #MeToo has gone global. It's all over the world. So, I hope, I don't ever expect to live to see a world in which women truly are treated with respect. and not as something that some man can have dominion over. Hey, God. So, I'm sorry. Just yapping a lot today. Where were y'all? You didn't write? You didn't call? Why? I feel rejected.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.